Now, the Greens leader Bob Brown is about to start a media conference in Canberra at Parliament House. Parliament gets back underway tomorrow. Let's cross live to Parliament now.
I was in the mountains of Western Tasmania, puffing and panting.
What brought you back?
Oh, well,
I think you wish you were still there.
yes, it was fantastic. And anybody who hasn't been on the Up Railway from Queenstown to Strahan needs to try it. That was the easy bit. The rest of it was a bit more rugged, but I'm feeling very fit and as you can see, a little bit suntanned. Go to Tasmania if you want a suntan. And looking very much forward to this year in the service of the people of Australia in this great parliament of ours. We're beginning that by making this call for a change to the superannuation tax regime. We've spoken to the government and I've spoken to the Treasurer about that to make it fairer. At the moment, the government foregoes some $30 billion a year in revenue through tax breaks to superannuation, and that's estimated to go to $40 billion within 3 or 4 years. That'll be lost to revenue through tax breaks on superannuation. But half of those tax breaks go to the 12% top income earners. And there's no real advantage for lower income earners in that setup. We want to change that so that instead of there being a general 15% tax break, as at present, the tax break would be 15% off the marginal tax that the income earner pays. This would be still a big incentive for high income earners like myself to stay with superannuation. But it would also mean that lower income earners would be given a bigger tax break, and that's what we're aiming at here, is making it fairer, just making the whole superannuation system fairer for people on lower incomes while providing still good incentives, good breaks for people who are on a higher income. We raised this matter during talks over the mining tax legislation last year. We'll be continuing to talk with the government about this, and it's one of those really progressive and socially fair options that in the economic governance of the country the government might take, particularly as the government's looking forward to being in surplus in the future. I think this measure is better than cost neutral. It may, we don't have figures on whether and how much it would bring into the government coffers. It's not intended to do that, it's intended to be fair. But we think that, and I will ask Treasury to do an assessment on it, but we think it'll come in better than cost neutral.
Have you personally told Julia Gillard she needs to get her house into order? And if not, when will you be doing it? And also, have you spoken to Kevin Rudd recently?
Thank you. I saw I was demanding that. I'm not quite demanding it, but I think it's a good suggestion. That poll today is what I've picked up over the summer holidays. There's a big swing around from the average punter in favour of Julia Gillard. She's getting a rough time. And let me state this because maybe others won't be so blatant. Quite a bit of the criticism is sexist and unfair and unrelenting, and the Prime Minister needs a bit of a break from that. And it's time she got that break, and the people of Australia are indicating she should have it. That poll today indicates that. If there's somebody who needs to be consolidating leadership, it's Tony Abbott, who's in a worse situation as far as the public's concerned in terms of potential leadership. And it may well be that it's the coalition leadership that's going to see change before we get to the next election, not the government's leadership. So,
can you give some examples of the sexist criticism?
I just think the degree of relentless criticism on this Prime Minister coming from male commentators it's probably all subconscious, but is sexist and quite ridiculous at times. People say, well, you point to comments on appearance and so on. No, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about a fair go. I think the Prime Minister herself on 7 last night talked about there not being such a relentless condemnation of a incumbent Prime Minister in the times of her predecessors, and I think it's a fair enough comment. My feedback from the electorate is the media ought to, and please, I know this is gratuitous, but please don't take it too much to heart, but ought to get on to the positives and the direction this country needs to be going, and a little less off. Well, I saw that Rupert wants to have a change of leadership again of Labor, and he's looking for a new leader for the country. I've tweeted him and said, I'm available, Rupert, just get behind me. We can begin with education funding because we're on the same page here. He suggested $5 billion a decade or so ago. Well, that's $10 billion in current times, which would bring us up to OECD standards. So I'm waiting to hear back from Rupert. He's going a little more public. I think that's good. Like Gina, she needs to go a little more public in where she stands politically. And let's have a little scrutiny of some of the movers and shakers behind the scenes, not just those people who are out in front.
Have you spoken to Kevin Rudd?
Leadership hasn't been welcomed by some. The Labor MP Nick Champion said this morning you should go and jump off a jetty, quote. How healthy is the Greens Labor
Well, I've already
alliance?
taken that advice. I jumped off the jetty at West Pillinger in Macquarie Harbour a number of times just last week, and it was very refreshing. I wish he'd been there with me. Paul and I had a great swim there in the wilderness. The fact is, we Greens are getting on, as I'm doing today, with putting forward an agenda. And I think that those in Labor who are scrambling around behind the scenes informing new good folk about their opinions should be putting a little bit of effort into saying what their opinions are on direction for this country. A fairer Australia in a world that's got its troubles, and one in which the public can take part in a debate about configuring the future. How about high-speed rail? I can't see either of the big parties being able to fund that. The Greens will. It's nation building, and we're going to make a major issue of it and continue to make a major issue of getting high-speed rail for this country in the run to the next election.
What did you think of Tim Fischer's proposal last week on that very matter, high-speed rail, where he said we should be selling visas to high-wealth people who want to come and live here, and then we can use that?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not in favour of people being able to buy their way to queue jump because they've got fat wallets in coming into this country. However, Tim's right about rail, and I'm right with him. He also talked up the light rail for Hobart because we're not going to be connected to high-speed rail anytime soon, and I think that's a great idea. So, we're on the same page.
What's the Greens' view on an early election?
We want this government to run full term. And I expect that Julia Gillard will be leading the government into the election sometime later than this next year.
Have you spoken to Kevin Rudd?
Response on the two major solar projects of the government's haven't been able to find financial backers.
Yeah, Christine Milne will be commenting on that a little later, but told you so. This is a Martin Ferguson fiasco. And had he listened to the Greens and to Christine Milne, this problem wouldn't have arisen. However, we now have, through the Renewable Energy Independent Committee that's reviewing the rules for the future, a mechanism for ensuring that we do better coming down the line. And the Greens, again, have been responsibly putting forward, through contacts with industry, parameters that should have been put in place. Ferguson failed to do that. That's led to problems. We need to get past that. All he has to do is ring Christine Milne and he'll get the right formula for making these programs, which are essential to the nation's future, work.
Have you spoken to Kevin Rudd lately? Have you spoken to Kevin Rudd lately?
No, I haven't spoken to Kevin lately. Sometime when Parliament was sitting last year, but no, not lately.
He spurned you when he was Prime Minister, didn't he? He wouldn't even take a meeting.
Well, we had meetings, but not in the last 12 months. But I think, he was very busy with, and not everybody could get in to see him. Conditions, the situation has changed. We are in the balance of power now, and I grant that to Kevin. Look, I get along really well with Kevin Rudd, as I do with, I think, all the Labor ministers, and indeed the Prime Minister. And I think that all those matters are up to Labor. All I can say is here's one political leader who's feeling very relaxed and confident about our team, and I'm looking forward to our continuing input into the politics of this country.
Can you just confirm then, Senator Brown, that the Greens would continue to support Labor in the event of a leadership change?
That's so. I see Tony Abbott somewhat on the skids, but the option you're talking about there is to say to Tony Abbott, you be Prime Minister after... You know, the only word he really knows is no. I want to see some yeses coming out of the opposition. This is the most negative opposition in Australian history. Bar none. Nothing like it. It's just all negative, no, won't, no this, no that, no something else. The Greens saying, here's an idea, like I'm doing today. We have these economic, social and environmental positive programs to put forward, and we're doing the job of the opposition, of Tony Abbott, for him. Now, I'm not going to endorse him into the Prime Ministership. The people of Australia may do that, and in that case, we would certainly talk with him.
Would your support, though, hinge on there being no change to the timing or implementation of the carbon tax and the mining tax?
Support for...
Labor?
Well, you know, this is a hypothetical, David. I've been around too long. I'm supporting the Gillard government through to the next election with this caveat. People should vote Green because it's the best option going in Australian politics. And I'm here to promote this Green option. Responsible, getting on with the job and not mired in all this speculation about leadership and polls.
Does the Greens team remain unchanged? You don't have any changes that you want to tell us about leadership-wise?
Goodness gracious, now you worry me. No, we're getting along beautifully. And by the way, I see some really nasty and biased and unfair attacks on Lee Rhiannon, who's a friend of mine. She's a good stick. She's intelligent. She's contributing to this parliament. I'm catching up with her again this afternoon. And any implication which you read in The Australian or anywhere else that she and I don't get along together is simply bunkum. Lee's a friend of mine. I admire her, and she's got my support.
Just back to the sexism comments. Do you believe the public has this attitude towards Julia Gillard, or is it just the media commentators that you're...
Look, what I see is the public support for Julia increasing in the face of enormous speculation about her not being secure. So the public's a bit ahead of the curve here, and that's what I've picked up over the break, being back talking with folk. And there's a great deal of sympathy out there for the resilience and the strength she has brought to that office. May not be the great visionary of political leadership in Australia, but very strong, very determined, and people are incredibly impressed with her ability to deal with what's been chucked at her, and so am I.
Senator, private health insurance means testing is on the agenda on Thursday. Where do the Greens stand on that? Will you pass it in the lower house and then refer it to an inquiry?
Well, we're concerned about the penalty clause for people who don't take out private health insurance, because we don't believe people should be penalised because they make the choice to go with the public system. And we're continuing to talk with the government about that. I noticed the opposition's got some manoeuvres there. We'll be looking at that. I'll be talking with Richard Di Natale about that. You'll know that he's right on top of this issue. If push comes to shove, we'll be getting the best outcome we can. We're not the Abbott opposition trying to block. We're here to try and improve. If we don't get the improvements, well, we have to deal with second best.
Do you support the principle of it?
We support the principle, yes, we do, because it's it's a progressive principle that's involved, but we don't support people being increasingly penalised for not taking out private health insurance. That should be a choice. That doesn't come with an added financial penalty on people in Australia who want to use the public health system.
Have you spoken to Mr Wilkie about his decision to walk away from his support for the government? And are you concerned that that could make things a bit harder, legislation to get through and things like that?
No, I haven't. But I have spoken with Adam Bant, and he's very strong in continuing the commitment that we made in 2010 to support this government and to go through with the program. And let me say here again, whatever Andrew Wilkie's difficulties, we have in the main seen a Prime Minister who's carried through her commitment to us. And we didn't ask for commitments, for example, to ensure a Parliament pass an issue within a period of minority government. I think that was going a step too far. How can you ask a minority government to ensure that a Parliament passes anything? You can ask them to do it, but to demand that they do it as part of a program was a little naive at the outset. But that said, we are very much in favour of the $1 bet option, and we think the government should take that up and should have taken it up at the outset. It's popular, it's cheaper, and it has it's much easier to implement. As you know, nearly 90% of Australians never go beyond $1, those who do use poker machines. And so it would rein in problem gambling so that instead of being able to spend $1,200 an hour, you could only spend $120 an hour. So it's a very good option, and Andrew's not averse to that, nor is Nick Xenophon, and I think it's something that the government should look at, because we do want action on this, and that's an action alternative that I think would have a good, and it should be tested in the Parliament, and Adam Bant is going to do that, and we will do that in the Senate.
Senator, you seemed, in your, a little earlier, you seemed to be somewhat unhappy about the fact that the Labor speculation is preventing issues debate, policy issues, and you're here trying to put up a policy issue.
Yes.
Is it frustrating to you that what is your advice to Labor MPs? I mean, they are the government and they have the ability to drive the agenda, but I don't hear them talking much about policy.
The only advice I have to Labor MPs, which on these matters is like to the Liberal MPs, join the Greens and get on with the issues. Shortcut. You'll be getting with the most dynamic force for policy innovation in this Parliament.
But you're professing your admiration for what Julia Gillard's ability to handle what's being thrown at her, yes. But nonetheless, the government seems to be unable to cut through with getting a policy debate. And what I'm really asking is, do you think that is because there's a restive caucus?
Well, that's a little part of it, but I pick up the media each day and I see enormous speculation there about leadership. I think it's not just caucus. I think it's being driven by the opposition. They think they're on a winner with it, and it's being amplified through sections of the media. Well, that's what happens in a free and open democracy. But I think the average punter out there is just getting a bit sick of it and want to see the Prime Minister given some breathing space so that she can get on with her program, and that does require caucus to get in behind her.
Do you have a meeting with the PM today?
No, I don't. But I'll be. I've got a meeting with one of her officers about the Tasmanian forest issue, and I spoke with Miranda Gibson, who's up that 60 metres up that tree under Mount Mueller this morning. She survived the storm last night. Her tarp is a hold. I said we'll supply her with a new one, and I want to tell the Prime Minister about the enormous advantages to Tasmania's economy and job prospects if we protect those World Heritage Value forests in the face of an enormous collapse by an industry who the Deloitte report on Friday showed Forestry Tasmania is going to continue to run at a loss for years to come. Let's put that money into more prospective futures. But I will be contacting the Prime Minister to talk about, to to talk about the program coming down the line. Yes. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was the Greens leader Bob Brown.